you walk into a forge, what do you come out as on the other side?
You know what I mean?
Something you said at one point you were not going to do. You got pulled in that 180 direction, and you were doing it without even realizing it.
It's like,
we all want to be better by the end of the day. But
Right,
that's life. That's like, if you stop walking
Life
through
is
the
a
forest,
forest.
you're probably dead. Those are things that you have control of because it's you. You gotta take a step back, breathe a little bit. Anything you say, I wish we could, is something you can control.
Right. What would I believe? What would I do in this situation? How do we handle this? That's an external we can control. Take emotion out of those reactions and think about them for a second. It's confidence. It's confidence in what you're doing. And it's, all right, that's great. But make sure you learned your lesson from it if that's what you're going to do.
You would hope that the people that truly have your back, that you respect their best interests when they're giving you advice, and to each their own. That's something that I really wish I would have learned like younger. Like,
I'm sure that's becoming a thing.
It's that reaffirmation that we all crave. Shame on me for having an expectation. Should have just gone.
We can
Only
talk about
podcasters are allowed. Got a badge.
I'm sure that's becoming a thing.
Badge.
I'm sure that's becoming a thing. You have to have so many followers.
That's like that's an external we can control. You know what I mean? Like that's something that we can like.
Can we?
Anything you say, I wish we could, is something you can control.
Right.
I don't think we can necessarily control how many followers we have.
You can.
Yeah,
by the choices you make to gain followers.
The more time we spend on this, the more energy we put into it. You know what I mean? Like that's
but we
more
can't.
followers.
We can't physically control people to the point of like making them click to subscribe. Like all we can do is ask them to.
Well, no, all we
you can ask more people,
and it's the way
and then we
ask
just
too.
continue to give good content to keep them subscribed.
Exactly.
And that as well. So there's,
and we're in control of the content that we put
indirect
out,
ways we can influence it.
Yes.
There are.
We can. That's the perfect word. We can influence it, but it's not something we can control.
Right. And the only way we can influence is by being ourselves. Like you can't, you know what I mean? It's like that's what we're doing.
Being genuine, not being commercial, and not being under contract.
Real talk, people. That's what we do here. We don't know what the hell we're talking about. That's why we're talking about it.
That's why we're talking about it. And that's why we take this time on a weeknight when we got other things to do in the morning.
And that's what it took us a while to get real with that as well too, because we had to break ourselves out of this thought that we were actually just doing a podcast and more just like, you know, the reason we're doing this because we always just shoot the shit. Like,
so why not record
that? Right. So it's like it had to go away.
We're just gonna have we're just gonna have a recording of us shooting the breeze.
Exactly. That's it. All these times you say, "Hey, do you remember?" and the other says, "No." Now we can. Now we at least have.
Now we have something
we can
that
go
we
back
can just
and look at it.
Hey, we got something documented.
If nobody else watches this, at least we can go back and remember it.
It almost is a little bit scary now that we do have some, like, once you have something documented and then it's
there.
You own it. Yes,
that's right.
I 100% said that. There's nothing I can do to disguise that.
Yep.
Nor would I want to.
That's where I feel like it gets frustrating when you're like trying too hard. Like that, if you're frustrated, that's a sign you're trying too hard. You know what I mean? And you're not just doing. Like,
you got to take a step back, breathe a little bit, assess what you're doing.
Maybe you're right. All I need to do is kick back.
Find out.
And at the same time,
right?
You have to understand and remember why you're doing it and who you're doing it for.
Yes.
Yeah. Go back to the basics. Go back to your origin. Go back to your roots. Like that's where having a good, strong foundation, a good, strong core values is huge because that's always something to fall back onto. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what would I believe? What would I do in this situation? How do we handle this? And that's exactly it. We just talk. We just do this. You know what I mean? We just converse. Like there's so many times where we'll just be talking after an episode or on like just a random day and we're like, we should have recorded that. That was an episode.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, well, that's the point.
Exactly.
Like that's the point. That's all we're doing is talking. And it's like, it's great. Like that's what we enjoy. And that's what we enjoy about ourselves, you know? And it's like you said too, it doesn't matter what comes from it because just being able to go back and rewatch them and like get that better understanding about yourself through watching your own conversations is something I've never got to do before.
It's you're
It
seeing
honestly-
it from the other person's shoes.
And
Yeah.
it has been nice to just put the podcast on when you have like other things to do and you're just kind of like listening. Like you kind of like listen to some of the stuff that you say and especially what the others say as well. And you're just like, man, they make a really good point.
And it's
Right.
things, we've talked about this before. We go back and we don't even catch things as we're having the conversation. Because
Even when I was listening, sorry.
You're good. I was just going to say, because, we're trying to think of like, oh, they said something really good. I don't want to forget what I want to say back to that. So we're holding that in.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back, and this is another thing we've said is you go back to listen to it. You're not going back with the preconceived notion that we have to give a response. You're just there to be a fly on the wall, but for yourself. So it's daunting, but it's eye-opening, and it's a refreshing thing once in a while, because you see things you don't like about yourself, but those are things that you have control of because it's you. It's you.
Right.
Nobody else made you do that. Nobody else made you say that way, or nobody else made you think that you thought that, or you said that way. You can pick how you say that next time, or you can change it up.
And that's where it's a balance too, because it's a portion of, okay, do I work on those things so I can better communicate? Or are those isms that just make me me? You know what I mean?
Right.
Are those characteristics that we don't want you to change because that's what we enjoy talking to you? Or are these things that like I could have better conversations if I worked on these little things? You know what I mean?
Right.
And you can pay attention to both.
That's where you got to find that balance too. And that's the biggest external, is understanding the only thing you can control is how you react to anything that comes your way.
100%.
Somebody does something to make you angry, you can't control the fact that it makes, or you can't control what they did, but you can control that you are angry from it. You are the reason
Exactly.
you're angry. What they
Right.
did didn't make you angry. You made yourself angry because of what they did.
That's something that I really wish I would have learned like younger. Like it took a handful of people to really like beat it into me for me to truly accept it and acknowledge it. That realistically, it's that reaction. It's you react, like someone does something to you, and then you give a reaction. It's the whatever reaction you choose to give that yields the power in the situation that has been done.
Yes.
Oh my god, it's Cher! I'm mad!
Everything has to be a tit for tat at that point, right?
Mhm.
And that's usually triggered by emotion. Like that's one thing I've been
Yes.
trying to do is like, if you can take emotion out of those reactions and think about them for a second and just
It's
breathe.
Tough, but it's highly rewarding.
It's like a muscle though. You can train it. And it's
It
almost
is.
dangerous where you got to be watch out, because you got to, some stuff needs emotion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Some stuff needs that emotion given to it. But when you feel that like anger or that thing emotion into it, like sometimes putting it in check and being like, why I'm upset. Because sometimes it's fine to be upset. It's fine to let people know that, they pushed you a little bit too far, but it's why am I upset? Do I have like a good reason to be upset?
Right. When you actually break it down to yourself. And you
Right.
can't just stop at that question. You have to say, why am I upset? And then actually decipher it. Don't say, well,
Right.
I don't know. I just am. That's
I'm
not
just
not a
mad. So
reason.
it must be right. It must be
There
fine
are
because
so
I feel
many
so
people that
mad.
do that though, that it's just like, wait a minute, why are you really upset? I don't know, I just am. It's like,
I'm just pissed.
People don't like to slow down and think. People, it's got to be now. You said you did this to me now, so I have to do this to you now. I get the last word.
that's
I-
that's really what I think it is. At the end of the day, some people just are hung up that they need to have that final action, that final word. Like they're the ones that have that deciding, like it's on them to make the deciding factor of accepting this, and they are making the deciding factor of not accepting, and that's what they're in control, choosing to not accept.
I said the last word, so I won.
Right. And
Basically,
it's a spiral too, because it's like once you get in that, you're consumed by it. And like I've noticed that from retail, because you see people who like every day. They're regulars, but they're always in the same state of mind. There's people who come in
Mhm.
and have this bubbly personality, can light up your whole day. And then there's these other ones. The moment they walk in the door, just the whole energy in the room just goes. It's like, dude, you live every day like this. That's
It's tough.
Do they live though?
sad.
Are they
It's-
alive?
I don't know. I
They-
mean,
well,
They're just
I
a
guess there's a
walking
part.
I mean,
corpse at
their
that
heart
point.
is beating, so yes, they
Yeah.
are alive, but just however they choose to present themselves. If they don't come into a shop with like a smile, and if they just come in like with resting bitch face, as it's called, and it's like I feel bad for some people that have resting bitch face, because that's just how they are when they're normal. Like, they're not ones that go out of their way to have a smile at all times, and to each their own. If you don't want to, I'm not going to force you to.
Well, and that's resting bitch face is different than a negative Nancy. Like someone who everything you
100%.
say has something like negative to retaliate to it. But I've like started to just play a game with them, because it's like, I'm not letting you bring me down to your level. I'm gonna bring you up to mine. So I'm gonna kill you with kindness. And I'm just
Absolutely,
gonna be
100%.
so overly nice to you. And it's almost annoying, because you're annoying with me with how much of a dick you're being. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
see
it's
how
like
it feels?
I can believe that
Yeah.
100%.
exactly.
It's funny you say that you play a game, because I was gonna, like, going back to the like having to have the last say. Like, I have some friends that are a little bit egotistical, that they are that way, where they have to have that final say. And I've actually just played with them a little bit, like where we're having a conversation and then I'll pretend like that's the last thing I say, so then they say something, and then I'll like walk away for like a couple seconds, but then actually what about, and then we just keep going back and forth until I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna give it to you.
And that's like you just said, it's that's a weakness. That's something you can exploit, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, which is like, that's where
Yeah,
it's dangerous
I don't
to
do it.
have
I
that.
don't do it often, because that's
But it's
mean.
calling out a character, you know what I mean? Like, what they're doing to you is just kind of as rude, where they're trying to dominate the situation, you know what I mean? So all you're doing
It
is
goes both
accentuating
ways.
issues. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you're at least awarely being kind of an ass. I guess it's how much you
Yeah.
do it, how often you do it. But
Yeah.
you know, it's like it's
I give
Subtly making a point.
It's our job to
people
help.
the time.
it's our job to help raise, you know what I mean? It's our job
The
to
people
influence
around
other
us.
people
We all
around
wanna
us
be-
just as much as they want to influence us. It's like,
We
hey
all want
guys,
to be
like,
better by the end of the day.
right. And it's
All
like,
we
if they
can
don't if they don't agree with you that much, or you're too annoying, they'll just stop hanging around with you. But it's like, if they're gonna hang around with you and you can make that impact, that's your homie. We're supposed to call each other out when we think the other's out of line and different things like that. That's what I expect of you guys. You know what I mean?
You would
Like,
hope. You would hope that the people that truly have your back, that you respect their best interests when they're giving you advice.
Yeah,
Right.
you don't get defensive. You actually take wholeheartedly what they say,
Mm-hmm.
and you're allowed to question it.
Absolutely.
But don't come
You're
from
even-
a defensive place.
You're even allowed not to take it,
Yeah,
right.
but you
It's-
don't have
at
to
the end
like
of the day,
make a thing
it's your
about it.
choice. Yes, that's the thing.
Because at
That's
the end of
where-
the day, that person still took the effort to give you something that is better than you having nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
So you want to acknowledge and you want to show appreciation, that I appreciate you I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I appreciate you saying this. I appreciate you
You just play
like opening this out in the air, whatever phrase you want to say, but it's up to you on how you take whatever it is that was said.
yes.
Right. That's where, like, Kev, you gave me some really good advice on that the other day when I called you, and like literally was just bogged down with my externals. Just everything life could throw at me that I couldn't control was just on my shoulders and pissing me off, and I could not shake it. And like, all you said to me, it was just blatant and simple, but I needed to hear it, and I knew it too well, was just be yourself. Like, that's the only way you can combat this, is be yourself. And it's like, however simple that was, that helped me through. Like, I couldn't grasp that on my own, or like recall myself down with it. But
You
it's
needed
like-
that reassurance that, like, when he says be yourself, he's saying do what the normal you would do. Do what Crick would do. Do do what you have confidence in doing. So
right.
when someone they've actually talked about that like telling someone to just be you is like a patch of like advice, because because it's like it's telling them basically to have confidence without telling them those words, like without calling someone out and saying you need to have more confidence. Like, you need to be you.
Yeah,
Right.
you know what you're
Like,
doing.
it just
I know
it
what
sounds a
you know
lot
what you're
better
doing.
and it means more.
You just
Right.
need to know that you know what you're doing. And the funny part is, he said, I've got that written on my whiteboard, and it's written down here. But
It
you just need to hear somebody else reaffirm what you are writing down and putting places, right?
yeah. And
It's
that's-
it's that reaffirmation that
Yeah.
we all crave.
Because
Like, even someone that lives by themselves, it's someone like interacting that they are in control, that it reaffirms that what they're doing is how they want it.
yeah.
Well, and you nailed it on the head too. It's confidence. It's confidence in what you're doing, and it's like you said too. It's like I felt so out of control. Like there were so many externals that I couldn't focus on, that I couldn't do anything about, and it was like I felt out of control. And that feeling of out of control is very abrasive. But the one thing I do have control over is me. That's the one thing. The only actions that I can control is what the hell I do. So it's like, if I, instead of putting all that energy on all those other things I can't control, I put the energy on the things that I can control. You know what I mean? Like, that gives me more support. That makes me feel more.
Your foundation
control.
comes back.
Exactly.
It does.
It's like what you said earlier. Go back to your foundations.
Even when I was kayaking earlier today, like, something that I have never done before, at least on this river, that all these things that I didn't expect, and it just, each one happening over and over was just another shot at my confidence, another shot at my confidence. So after like the fifth or sixth one, I'm just like, is this going to be the entire trip? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, why did we do this? Like, who would do this? Like, why? And that was just me having a moment. At the end of the day, we were safe. At the end of the day, nothing popped, thank God. There were, like I said, there were a couple moments that I'm going over some sticks and I'm just like, oh God, please. Oh God, please. Oh God, please. Made it home safely. Thank you, Jesus. It was fun. But at the it goes right in line that, like, going into this trip, I had the expectation that we were just going to go down this river. I was going to drink some beer and we were just going to enjoy nature. And then, shame on me for having an expectation. Should have just gone in knowing that so many different things could happen. You may have to walk the kayak over to some land when you got a tree that fell down. That's just kind of common sense. Storm goes through, tree gets hit, tree falls down, blocks river. It was a little bit absurd to me that, like, how often it was happening. I'm like, why does the DNR not come through and like document where these trees have fallen so they can have them removed? But then, like, why would they do that? Like, it's just something recreational. Like, there's no business involved in that. So of course there's much more pressing things than clearing trees on a river for people.
Right.
Plus, that makes like a natural habitat for fish too, right?
Yeah.
And like you said,
Beaver
though,
dams. We saw like a handful of beaver dams, and I'm just like, it's a legitimate dam.
like you said too, though, you made it through. You know what I mean? Like, what does not kill you makes you stronger. And even though it's like so shitty and your stress and your anxiety is so high, you've just lifted the bar for yourself slightly more for the things that you can put up with.
Look what I can do. I guess I can do that.
Yeah,
And
now the next time that I go kayaking, and if I actually it is smooth sailing, that I don't have to like walk it over land, I'm gonna be like, that's the best you got.
Right. And that's where it's like I stepped away from like my management position recently, and like I was talking to my mom about it, and she was like, you know, are you sure you want to do that? You know, and I was like, yeah, I just feel like in my gut that's what I need to do. And she's like, all right, that's great, but to make sure you learned your lesson from it if that's what you're gonna do. You know what I mean? And like, that's the biggest thing, is like learning the lesson from those stresses and those anxieties. And like, I learned my lesson. Like that's what was giving me so much stress and anxiety about stepping down, is because like I didn't know for sure why I was doing it, but now I do. It's like I want to dedicate myself to me, to the things that I want to do, not the things that I'm good at, but the things that I enjoy. You know what I mean? And like I learned my lesson, and a super valuable lesson, by the chaos that ensued all around it. You know what I mean? But at the end, I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm still standing, and I learned from it. You know, that's all we can ask.
Like anything else, you walk into a forge, what do you come out as on the other side?
Realistically, I guess not a lot of people would think that they have to walk through that forest on a daily basis.
Right? But that's life. That's like, if you stop walking
Life
through
is
the
a
forest,
forest.
you're probably dead.
If you stop taking challenges, if you stop
Yeah.
pushing yourself, you got to put yourself outside your comfort zone. It's fine. Like you learn your lessons and you learn from them for a reason. You put yourself out there for a reason. But it's like, don't ever let it hinder you from putting yourself outside your comfort zone again. Just understand why you're there and what it means. And like, you just got to check in with yourself. Like the world is wild and chaotic, and there's all these other variables and all these other people that influence and all these other things while you're trying to do this one thing that you're trying to do. And some people are going to take you off this way and this and that. So all you got to do is just be like, wait. It's like kind of what it was for me. It's like, wait, why am I managing again? I didn't think I wanted to do this. I said I didn't want to do this, but I'm here, I'm doing it again. And it was just like, I got deterred from what I already knew I didn't want to do. You know what I mean? And
Something
it's
you
like,
said at one point you were not going to do. You got pulled in that 180 direction, and you were doing it without even realizing it.
right. I'm like, oh, money. Okay, that's good. Yum, yum, yum,
Yeah,
yum.
right.